welcome to episode 180 of the Wheatley podcast. Really had to restrain myself from saying the dart thing, 180. But I didn't. I want to thank you all for tuning in, obviously, but I want to thank Peter for coming on last week, for talking about clinical psychology, for talking about medication, how we should change mental health care, stuff like that. It was an interesting chat. Like I didn't agree with everything, but I knew like Peter kind of understood that. And when I think I should have pushed back a little bit, I also think, it's his episode and I read his book and I appreciate his opinions, and we can have it. We can have it both ways, I guess. But I really like his idea of changing the way we look after people who have severe mental health issues. So go and have a listen to that. You can support us on Buy Me a Coffee if you like. It's always appreciated, and thanks if you have done so. But for this week, our guest is a tattoo artist, and her name is Claire Griffin. How you doing, Claire?
Good, thanks.
We just mentioned first time we've had someone interviewing in a car.
It's the only safe space.
All right, there. Look, it's important to have the space. You don't have to say their ages, or are they quite small, their kids?
Yeah, they're nearly 4 and 2.
Yes, I can imagine the car is the only place that we can have a chat. But it's
the echo of mama in the background.
As long as they're looked after, I'm sure they'll be fine for an hour or so. We won't.
I just left them.
It's
a short episode.
Yeah, it's going to be a 10-minute one. We'll just race through it all. But Claire, we always start at the beginning. Could you give us a short history of your upbringing, please?
Yeah, I was born in Dublin, but moved with my family to Mayo when I was 11, so it was a bit different from Dublin. And yeah, just went to school there, grew up there. My parents are foster parents as well. I suppose that's maybe one thing that was a bit different. But not different for me. Like that's the way I grew up. I didn't know any different, but I suppose I was exposed to maybe a lot of different cultures and different people, and which I'm really grateful for now. I feel like it's really shaped who I am as a person, and we're like my whole family. We're all very open to other people, other cultures, and very accepting and understanding as well. Yeah, and I moved into Galway when I was probably 18 and started tattooing very soon after.
That's Dublin to Mayo it's quite a transition. And I remember speaking to someone on here before, and it might have been the opposite way to Mayo to Dublin. But again, it's quite a change in environment, like, both beautiful counties and stuff like that, but it is quite a change. How did you go then so you went to Galway, how did you end up where you are now?
Myself and my partner actually met working in a tattoo shop in Galway. And then it kind of progressed to us wanting to open our own shop. So we both got fired because we started dating in this tattoo shop, and which is fair enough. But then we decided we wanted to open our own shop. There were a lot of shops in Galway at the time, and I had a lot of clients from Athlone that said that there wasn't many shops in the area. So we just kind of decided to come here.
Yeah, why
and
not?
We're glad we did. It's great. I love it here.
Brilliant. And makes a lot of sense, obviously business wise, to get out, because like I was mentioning before, and we will obviously get it into tattoos a lot, but I think I kind of walk around a lot of the time with my head in the clouds when I'm in town. I've mentioned the idea of anxiety a lot. So if I am in town, I don't really give myself the time to look around and see like where things are. So it's like, where do I have to go? And then it's like a beeline to that place, And I think if I was in Athlone or with Galway, it doesn't really matter. Like, I think I miss so many things. So I wouldn't even notice in Galway the tattoo shops. I know Shop Street, but I don't know any of the shops on Shop Street because I'm just going through it or I'm going by things. And I think, when I go through Athlone, I don't think I even know where the tattoo shops are. Like, that's not good.
It's really, I think if you were here a couple of times, you'd kind of recognize where stuff was. It's not a big town. It'd be hard to
Yeah,
miss things.
that
Out
is
of
true.
the 20 shops that are here, you'd probably notice one or two.
Yeah, I think most what I was going to say normal people. That's dig at myself almost. But anyway, listen. The other question we always ask Claire. When did you first become aware of mental health?
Probably when I was quite young, my uncle would have struggled a lot with his mental health, and he lived with us for a spell. So I suppose that was the first time I was ever exposed to somebody that was struggling with theirs. But throughout my own life, I've had my own kind of challenges with
Hmm.
mental health. Especially growing up with, I know now it was ADHD. I didn't know what it was at the
Yeah.
time. I just always felt like things were more difficult for me. Like people just found things easier that I really struggled with. And now, obviously, knowing where it stemmed from, uh, I don't really beat myself up as much as I did about it. So, but that definitely impacted my mental health. And also the move from Dublin to Mayo, uh, that probably had a part to play as well. Like I was so different from a lot of my peers. Like I had no interest in farming or GAA, so it kind of, I suppose, alienated me from a lot of people in school. Like I had great friends as well, but just yeah, from the majority, I felt a little bit alienated. So
Yeah, I understand that too. I think having spoken to some people who maybe weren't diagnosed with certain things before they became an adult, and then they kind of could look back, I guess, on what they felt at the time, but didn't have any kind of thing to, connect it with. So I think something like ADHD, I think, is interesting because, I know people who are ADHD, and I see this as they're adults now. I didn't know them when we were kids or whatever, but I see it as adults now, and I see that kind of the slight difference in how we go about things. It's the same as saying someone has anxiety or something. They go about things differently. I can't imagine how difficult it must be to experience that when you are a kid and not know what it is.
yeah, yeah, no, it was really difficult. Like I would go to do my homework after school, and it wasn't for lack of like ambition to do well in school or the desire to do my homework, like, or the drive to do it. I had all of that. But then you'd sit down and you'd start like thinking about something else, or like obviously get distracted by something else, and it would just take hours. And then I'd end up in arguments with my parents over it. My dad would be like, just sit down and do it. And I was like, never thought about that. Like, I'll just do that then. Like,
Yeah.
and obviously he wasn't aware that there was something underlying as well. Like, but it definitely caused a lot of problems and a lot of friction between us as well. So, but yeah, understanding now from this perspective, obviously it was just the ADHD struggle. So, but
Uh,
I'd spend 8 hours on my homework after being in school for hours, and
yeah.
like I'd be going to bed at stupid o'clock in the morning, like just because I wanted to get stuff done and I wanted to do well. So, and I did do well, but it came at a massive cost.
I understand like that, which I having seen your work, as an artist and a tattoo artist, kind of, I suppose, interlink. But when did art become a thing for you?
Oh, immediately. I've always been, like, from when I was really, really little, interested in art. Like every summer camp I went to, every spare moment I had, it was just spent drawing or doing something artistic. It's really the only thing I ever enjoyed. Like, and then obviously, when I moved from Dublin to Mayo, I had no friends then, and I was kind of like there were like three fields in between our new house and the neighboring house, so there was no one around, and then I kind of just spent a lot of time on my own, kind of drawing and stuff. And the same in secondary school.
Hmm.
My art teacher was great. She was brilliant, and I just loved it. Like she'd pull me out of class. to help with other people's projects because mine was done long before it was due. I spent all my time there. It was great.
You, this is always a kind of a question that I ask people who are artists and in the sense of drawing or painting and stuff like that. I always think if you have to draw a portrait of someone, that there's a massive amount of pressure on the artist because I see, like, if you're looking at something like um abstract, or surrealism or something, there's a license to go outside of those borders and those confines that you would have. Do you go into something doing something like that with that pressure, or is it just the artists, the creativity that kind of takes over?
Oh, in the beginning, definitely. Like there was, you feel the pressure a lot more now. Now, I suppose I've done a lot of them, so I'd feel fairly confident with them. But I just sacrificed all my friends at the start. It's like we're doing this. Don't worry, I'm not charging you for it. So if I mess up, it's okay.
I think it's one of those things though that, like, it's such, well, it's not look, this depends on the person, of course, as well, like, because I think if you see a photograph of yourself, sometimes you take offense to the photograph and it's like, a literal, image captured. But if someone draws you and you've got, maybe in this situation you've got like funny ears or, a strange nose that you don't think you have, then the friction arises between the artist and the subject, and I'm sure you've had those things before, but can you kind of get yourself out of it by suggesting that this is artistic license?
Not so much with the portrait. I mean, if somebody like they obviously choose the photo that they want to get,
Mm.
so they're obviously fairly content with whatever photo they've chosen. They can be more particular about photos of their kids.
Yes.
I remember I was doing a portrait of someone's kid, and like the kid had a long head. There was no two ways about it. He had a long head. It was just his head. He
Yeah.
probably hadn't grown into it yet, but the mom was like, "No, no, we're not tattooing his head that long." And I was like, "Okay, do you?" And I had to like shorten his forehead. It looked fine,
Did it?
but yeah,
But it's
yeah, she was very particular about how head shape
like,
would be.
yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll get into that with the tattoos because I do have some questions about that. Uh, what was the first tattoo that you got though?
Oh, I did go to college in Dublin very
Hmm.
briefly, and I got a tattoo when I was there. It was like lilies on my hip, and I did absolutely no research into the shop I got it in. Like it was like I don't know how much I could say. I don't want to put anyone on blast here,
It's just,
but
yeah, just don't
I
mention the
mean
shop.
I know the artist kind of not on a personal level, but I
Mm.
know of him professionally and stuff now, so I don't really want to say too much.
Sorry.
But wasn't it wasn't great. It certainly wasn't like I don't know how to say this. like like he was smoking during the tattoo and
Wow.
so was I. And then kind of halfway through the tattoo someone came into the shop to collect some money. So he needed the payment for the tattoo immediately.
Oh, very, yeah.
It was like yeah, it was not a bad experience, but just I haven't had one like it since.
I think, yeah, like not a bad experience, but not the way you do things, I
No,
suppose. Yeah.
certainly not. No.
And why did you like, was lilies just did it have a particular meaning?
It was for my grandmother that was like her flower. So
Ah,
I was really close with her. And she passed when I was quite young. So, but she was like my best friend. So it was just for
that's
her.
sweet. You see, these are I think these are the kind of interesting things about tattoos, and this is why I wanted you to have you on, because I do find it the whole thing about tattoos intriguing. I was at a wedding yesterday. Now that was my first wedding in, oh my god, 15 years, right? So, and I'm not a big fan of crowds and big gatherings and stuff like that. But I think it was because I was going to have you on today that I noted the amount of tattoos that the people had, and the different styles and how creative a lot of the tattoos are. And I've often wondered, like, what would I get a tattoo of if I was to get a tattoo? And like, I've had a discussion with people, and I don't think I love anything enough to get a tattoo of. And the Beatles will say to me, like, maybe the Beatles, fair enough, that might be one thing that but I think the interesting to me is like, obviously yours was a very personal thing. Your first tattoo was a very personal thing. When you're talking to people, because I know this is a large part of the initial contact has to be, talking to the person, what you want, why you like them, things like that. Do you find that the initial tattoo is something meaningful to the person, or can it just be uh, something quite random? Because I do know people have random stuff as well.
Completely depends on the person. Obviously, you can get a tattoo of whatever you want. So some people like really think their tattoo out and like it all has symbolism and significance and everything. And other people just get totally random stuff. Like uh, a friend of ours, he has the most random tattoos ever. He has, I think, curry cheese chips in Arabic on his wrist, and like just totally off the wall stuff. Probably stuff that's not safe for work
Yeah.
to, that I won't say on here, but yeah,
Depends.
no, it's just totally dependent on the person. Like,
Yeah.
geez, there's so many different types of people out there, so you can imagine there's equal the amounts of different ideas for tattoos.
Um, have you ever thought you're like, I know it's not really your place in the sense of you to tell people what they should and shouldn't put on themselves. But have you ever had a moment where you thought to yourself, maybe don't put like curry cheese chips in Arabic? I'm just using that example. It's fine
No, I
tattoo.
was like, that's a great idea. Why didn't I get that?
But like,
But there has been definitely, no, there definitely has been. We had a guy come into our shop once, and he was like really upset. He just broken up with his girlfriend. She cheated on him, and he had her name on his bicep. And then he was like, I just want to get something like really disrespectful, like to disrespect her as much as she's disrespected me. And he wanted to cover it up with a big willy.
mm,
And I was like, maybe we do something else. Maybe this isn't the best idea because if I cover up the name with the willy, you're only going to have the willy.
yeah,
No longer going to have the name, and you're going to have to explain it to everyone every time they see the evil willy on your arm, like why it's there. And if you're in the queue in Tesco or getting your groceries, and like a family of four see you with a big willy
yeah.
on your arm, they're probably not going to get the time to ask you why you got it. So he decided it maybe wasn't the best idea, and we did something else. Then we covered it up with something
I
better.
think, yeah. I mean, that would be a choice. I think when I was growing up, my dad, he doesn't like tattoos at all, like, and which is fair enough. I mean, we can all like and dislike things. And I wondered, was it something that stuck with me, or not stuck with me, but kind of was ingrained in me through conversations that I didn't get a tattoo because I didn't want to displease him, or, he'd be annoyed about these things. So I remember my brother got a tattoo, and like he was hiding it from my dad like for years, and then he got another one. He got one on each arm. And one day, and I was in the room, and it was great. Like, so his arm was like kind of riding up, the t-shirt was riding up, and my dad spotted it. Now, my dad, like at this stage, my brother was in his 20s, so it's not like he could, kick off and say, whatever. But he kind of let a couple of shots part, and that was fine, whatever. And my brother has more tattoos since then. Like, but I often wonder, is that like something that's carried on with me? Because I do think, like I said earlier, like I don't think I love enough to get a tattoo of something on me. But at the same time, I wonder, is it in my head that like, oh, I might still displease my father about, this kind of idea of getting tattoo? And it's just something that I've always thought about. I should really have a conversation with him about it, because I think it's interesting.
I don't think your dad at this stage would have that. It's obviously just something that you're not really interested in,
Yeah.
which is fine because I don't know, and maybe you like do everything that your parents say, or like yeah, you're not rebellious in nature. But I don't think, like in my experience, kind of your parents' opinion doesn't really have like have like it doesn't really have a part to play
Mm.
in your decision to get tattooed. Like I tattooed people with very religious parents, like from Muslim families and stuff like that. And if they want to get tattooed, like they probably, well, in Ireland anyway,
Yeah, of course.
they will do it when there's like no like major consequences.
This is true. I think I saw on Instagram on your page that you I don't know if this is the same child that you mentioned with the long head, but I saw that you doing portraits of, you know, from page to skin. Now that's a whole other level of pressure because no, I know you can adjust things with the ink and stuff like that, but that has to be spot on.
Yeah, no, it can go horribly wrong very easily. There's like small mistakes that people make uh, very often with portraits as well, especially with kids, and everything has to be like very delicate and soft. And I find like sometimes people can put like a heavy line around all of the teeth, and then they
Mm.
end up looking like zombies or something like that. Like, uh, but I really enjoy it. I don't find it difficult, and I love doing them for people, especially if it's like, say, a memorial portrait
Mm.
or something like that. It gives me a sense of purpose, like I'm
Mm.
helping with their grieving process, or kind of just helping them keep a part of that person with them all the time. So yeah, I just love it. It's one of my favorite things to do.
I wonder that sense of purpose that you mentioned. I think because tattoos are so important to people, like, you know, who have tattoos, and I think that sense of purpose, you know, whether it's something as personal as, you know, a portrait of someone, or it's something that like, um, you know, it's someone's favorite band or whatever it might be. I think that sense of purpose is always there because I do think that people take great, um, you know, pleasure and ownership, you know, having that tattoo and being um standing out from the crowd with it. So I think that sense of purpose should kind of, not trying to tell you you should always have a sense of purpose, but I think it should probably always be there.
Like there are people that do tattoos just as a job, like, and
Mm.
that's fine as well. You don't need to like what we do doesn't always have to be profound. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
perfectly fine to just go and do your job, and like you like doing like tattoos that don't necessarily have a lot of meaning and stuff like that. Like you don't always have to. Like I don't. I suppose it just depends on the person. I get a great feeling from it. Like when I get to give somebody something like that, and I feel like it really helped them. Like even so areola tattoos or something like that. If someone has had a mastectomy, like that is like what an amazing thing to get to
Mm.
give somebody. Like their confidence back, and especially women after having a surgery like that, like it has such an impact on them
Mm.
as a person and how they feel in their bodies, and to be able to even just give them a little piece of themselves back, like it's amazing. It's an amazing thing to be a part of. Um, or scar cover ups as well,
Mhm.
like touching on mental health, like that's a big part of our job too. And you know, you'd meet people after you do tattoos like this, and I remember a conversation with one girl, and she said it's just totally changed her life. Like she used to wear long sleeves all the time, no matter what temperature it was, on holiday, on the beach, ever, like just to cover up. And she said like that you wouldn't believe the difference the tattoos made to her life. Like from day one, it totally changed the way that she was able to carry herself, and not having to explain that to people, you know. So, especially when you struggle with mental health and have those visible scars there, it's like
Yeah.
you can never really get away from it, because people are insensitive, like they will mention it.
Oh yeah. I think that's important to know as well about that, you know, tying things in. Because I often think people think, oh God, this is a mental health podcast. It's going to be so heavy about everything, and this is going to be, but and it's not going to connect. Why would you have this person on? Why would you have that person on? Because it's not going to connect. But there's so many connections with mental health with everything, you know, and it all runs through it. And I think um, when people have that opportunity that they can cover up something like that and improve their mental health and improve their confidence and stuff like that, It's amazing. And the fact that you can provide that, and you have that skill to provide that, I think it's so important. When you were, when you were as an artist, doing the portraits or doing the tattoos and stuff, how does that, how does your ADHD come into play? Does it help with that?
Does it help with my ADHD
It does,
or?
like, I mean, is art something that does help your ADHD?
I suppose it's kind of one thing I've never really struggled to,
Mhm.
well, not that I've not struggled to focus on, but I've had more focus available, because I'm interested in it,
Yeah.
and that interest is there for longer periods of time. So I definitely struggled less now. I'm medicated up the wazoo now, so I've unlimited focus. It's like the pill in Limitless.
Yeah, yeah.
So now it's great. Geez, I could tattoo until stupid o'clock, and I'd still have all the focus in the world. But yeah, I suppose in the beginning, definitely that's probably why I got into tattooing, was because it was something that really interested in me, and I had no problems like learning for it or paying attention to stuff or so.
I have a friend who's ADD, and music is his thing. And once he gets into that, like studio or even at home when he's writing, um, that's when he finds that kind of balm that can kind of calm him down a little bit, and he's able to focus a lot better on what he's
Hmm.
doing. And like you say, the interest in something will help with that anyway, But being drawn into that kind of thing where you are being creative and stuff, I think it's such a great thing. And you kind of hope that kids, are being led kind of down paths where they're kind of, this is what's your interest, that they'll find that. And it's not just, sitting down. I don't want to give out about sitting down playing computer games and stuff, but you know what I mean? It's rather, find something that they can kind of get on with, and it can help them with it. What are you like? Because I remember when I was a kid, right? I'll go back to my father again. I'm not having a go at my father. He'll be listening to this. Listen, Pierce, I'm not having a go at you, all right? But I used to go into his shop. He was a hairdresser for years and years and years, right? So I used to go into his shop, and he used to sit down, and he'd be talking to the person be cutting their hair, and there might be a couple of people waiting, and they're in conversation, and it's a big, they're kind of talking about anything and everything. And I was too young to understand most of the stuff, but I was always admired the way he could do it, and he can still do it, but he's retired now. But he could do it all the way up to when he retired and just talk about everything. Now you're in kind of a similar position where you're going to be with someone for how many hours, I don't know, but for a long time. How are you with those kind of flowing conversations, or do some people prefer not to talk at all?
I talk a lot, but if I notice someone's not chatty or something like that, I maybe flick on a podcast or something,
Mhm.
and we can all just listen to that. But a lot of my clients, they're the same as me. Like they talk about anything and everything, and yeah, so I certainly offer a lot of unsolicited advice
Very important.
with no basis from the University of TikTok, so always readily available.
It's Do you know what though, Claire? Um it's not that it's difficult for me. I think it's I work in the gym, and I think, people come in and I see them a lot. They're constantly in there doing classes with me and stuff like that. So it's quite easy. Now, obviously, you'd have returning clients, so there's some sort of a basis of a relationship there. But for newer people, that's where I find it quite difficult, because what happens to me is I get like, I don't like the silence. All right. So it would be so, I don't know. So I'd have to fill it. And then I find myself just talking nonsense, like, just rubbish. Not from the school of TikTok. I don't know, maybe Instagram. I'm only that level yet. I haven't quite made it to TikTok level.
Yeah,
But
you're not doing your masters.
I haven't done my masters, but I think there's plenty of time. I'm not quite over the hill yet, but I have been constantly told, "Oh, go on TikTok." What am I going to do on TikTok with the podcast? I don't have any. I've like Unless the guests come on with me, I can probably do it then. But I think the gift of the gab kind of thing is so important in those situations, because people going in to get their first tattoo are going to be nervous, like, there's,
Hmm.
um, and they're going to be thinking, well, this is me really thinking this, but oh, is this going to be painful? How big is it going to be? All this, and like trusting in someone to do it for you. And I think it's so I would imagine it's such a big part of the job, really.
Yeah, it is for sure. And we're quite lucky in our shop. We have a good balance of personalities in the rooms. So we kind of have one really loud person and then like artist, and then throw a couple of quiet ones in with
Yeah.
them. So there's always someone kind of guiding the conversation. And in our room, like we'd often have three artists and then their three clients. But one of the artists that I work with, like he could go the whole day without saying a word.
Oh, really?
Trying to talk to their client, to your client, and like to join, like to keep everyone in the loop and everyone in the same conversation. Yeah, it's just sure people have different personalities. Not everyone's happy.
Absolutely. And so when in your setup, then how many people are in there in the building?
In the build, so then there's two artists upstairs as well, tattoo artists, and then we've piercer downstairs.
Ah, okay, right. So it's I think, well, I do know where your place is, but I don't want to. I'm so nervous about getting things wrong that I often just get. Could you, for people who, okay, we'll do it this way, all right? For people who aren't at loan, where are you situated?
Just on Church Street, it's kind of one of the main streets in
Hmm.
town, uh, near kind of near the Prince of Wales Hotel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was right. It's okay. Everyone relax, all right?
yeah, you can say that now. I've already told you.
Yeah. Oh no, I knew for a fact it was there. No, I feel more confident now that I knew where we were going. But again, that's just me wandering through town, not I'm not looking around me properly. Does your mind ever wander when you're tattooing someone?
I mean, yeah, it would do. Uh, like anything, I suppose, like I'm not as focused on the process now because
Mhm.
it's more natural. When I started in the beginning, like I was not like my brain was only thinking about the tattoo, like every single movement, and then I suppose as time went on and it became more second nature, like you'd have more space to think and listen to something like you can put on the podcast and follow it and stuff. I tattooed another tattoo artist not long ago, and myself and Chris put a podcast. Chris, my partner, put a podcast on, and he was like, "Are you able to like follow this?" But he was kind of a newer artist. I was like, "Yeah, yeah, we listen to the podcast the odd time while we're working and stuff." And he's like, "Geez, I can't even listen to music. Like I need to like really think about what I'm doing." And I was like, "Oh." You'll get to the point where you'll be able to watch a movie and tattoo at the same time and follow both.
I think that's you know, it's the people as well. Like, the mind has to kind of keep working as you're doing something that, like you said, second nature to you. I think it's like we talked about with other people about like whether they're musicians or artists or writers, and they've all got their own little processes that other people wouldn't be able to do. Like, sitting down, maybe you're writing, you're listening to like classical music, and you couldn't listen to, say, Bob Dylan because there's lyrics and the words would get in your head and you're writing stuff out and it would interrupt the kind of flow of it. And I think it's like you say, like you can listen to a podcast, and I suppose as podcasts go, you're supposed to kind of keep in tune with the conversation that's happening. I think people could do it, but like I think it's funny like that tattoo artist might never get there, but they might find another way. They might find music or an easier thing to deal with. But it's fascinating. I think how artists work and how they work. Um, with other kind of mediums going on around them, and how you can work with that is interesting to me, because here's my thought process on something like art. If I was drawing or doing a tattoo, like I'd have to just constantly focus fully on that. But like you said there, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I'd start to go off on something else, a little bit down the line. Who knows?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like you kind of try and focus, like hyper focus on stuff when you're not confident
Mm,
and kind of unsure how to do it. And then when it's kind of when you're doing it every day for so long, like you really don't have to think that hard about it anymore. Uh, so you're able to kind of let your mind wander and listen to other things.
absolutely, yeah. What's the hardest tattoo you've ever had to do?
Oh, I don't know. Um, like maybe not the hardest technique wise, but probably one of the like definitely anytime I'm tattooing a memorial portrait for
Yeah.
someone's child, like that is emotionally the most difficult one to do. Like sometimes I can't even do the stencil, like I'd be my eyes would be watering, I wouldn't even be able to see, like just thinking about it. Like that can be quite tough. And then obviously you're getting into conversations about it during the tattoo. It's just really upsetting. Like people go through so much, so much. And I don't know, like when I think about all these things that like the people I've tattooed, especially like those kind of tattoos on, when I think about the things they have to go through every day and things that they went through, like
Mm.
it's amazing that they're still able to put one foot in front of the other.
I can't imagine how difficult a decision it is to, you know, have that memorial tattooed on you, because I think, you're never going to forget something like that. You're always going to be reminded of something happening to a loved one, like especially if it's a child. But to you know, dedicate something to that person on yourself, and having to see that, every morning. I can't imagine how difficult a decision it is to make to do it.
Mm. Yeah, I suppose maybe not for everyone, but
Yeah.
like I had a miscarriage in the past, and like it's all like it's always on my mind. Like
Hmm.
it's never not there, and like those thoughts and stuff just kind of come forth anyway, even though I don't have a memorial tattoo for it. Like I don't think having so like something marked on my skin would make me think of it any more or any less.
Hmm.
I think those memories and thoughts and stuff just they just come forward, and you have to think about them.
Yeah, and look, I'm coming from the perspective of, not having kids. I think that's another thing about it. When And look, we've had to kind of had this conversation on here before about, people losing um loved ones, and losing kids and stuff. And I think when somebody who has kids has to think about it, I'm not saying it's any less, like, I don't think of it as a horrific thing for people to go through. But I think when people who have kids, I think they see it a different way, and I think they see it, um I think to kind of try and put yourself into that position, I just think it's a horrendous thing to have to do. But like we mentioned before, for you having that responsibility, first of all, to put that tattoo on someone, but also giving them that, I think it's a massive gift. And I think it's a really beautiful thing. And having seen the work that you've done, I think it's, pretty incredible, when you see, that you can transfer that, image and memory of the child onto someone. It's a pretty amazing thing that people you can do for people.
Yeah, I'm glad to be able to do it. Like, um, geez, like it's like I don't know. I don't know. You can't even say like that it's helping them or giving them something because when something like that is taken away, I don't think anything will ever,
Hmm.
you know, geez, I don't really think I'm giving them anything, but I'm happy to be able to do any like something for them if it gives them even a little bit of comfort. But yeah, I just can't. It's just that is definitely the most difficult part of it. Like just
Yeah.
and trying to kind of put that like compartmentalize those kind of things and thinking about my own kids and stuff like that. Like you kind of have to try and just put it aside and do the job as well, which is so yeah, definitely that has to be the toughest
Mhm. I understand.
toughest
Yeah.
one to
Um, what do what do your tattoos say about you, do you think?
do. The tattoos I have on me or the
Yeah.
tattoos that I do. I don't know. I don't have like a lot of tattoos. I'd like to have more, but if they weren't so sore, I'd probably get more of them. I have just random bits.
Mm.
I have that one really important one for my gran.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just how to look cool. It would make me look cooler.
And that's part of it. That's a big part of it. And I think, like I said, having a look around the wedding yesterday and seeing seeing certain things. Now, obviously, I can't know what that tattoo means to the person, but sometimes you're just looking at them, kind of going, maybe that's what it just is. Like, just that it's a fashion statement in a way, and that, it's their identity, and that's a big, we kind of play it down. Well, I used to, anyways, I suppose, when I was younger, about like about tattoos, is like, someone trying to be cool or showing off, but like, so what if they're trying to be cool? So what if it's part, because it's a big thing to them to get something on their body, permanently, really. Um,
Yeah.
Fair play to them.
I think for myself anyway, the first couple of tattoos, like you put a bit of thought into and you get it for like a certain reason or whatever. But then, especially like when you're in this environment all the time and there's people like tattooing around you all the time, like some of my tattoos are like, oh, like Pepe had a day off on Tuesday and I also had a day off. So like nothing better to do. And
Yeah,
I got a tattoo because it was something he wanted to do, or I put it like I would put some thought into it, but there's no
yeah.
profound meaning behind any of them at this point. Maybe if I get something for kids, or I don't know, something like that. But
Yeah, yeah. Like, my brother did that as well. Like, and that's obviously really nice. This might be a redundant question for someone who's full-time job and a couple of kids, but what do you like to do in your spare time?
uh, I remember spare time. I don't have any. I literally don't have any spare time. Like I suppose if me and Chris had a cancellation, on the same day, we might skype off somewhere and go do something. I like hiking.
Yeah,
I can't wait for the kids to kind of get enough stamina that they can come on little hikes with us when they're a bit older. Um, we have a caravan. We go out in the caravan sometimes whenever the weather's good. We
yeah.
take the kids off. And what else? That's all really. I
What
listen to
would you do?
podcasts when I do the ironing.
So, okay, let me take you back, right? I'm going to take just for a little kind of thought experiment, all right? When you were growing up, not like when you were in your maybe early 20s, like, what were you doing with your spare time then? Well, like, were you in a kind of the music circle? Because there was always these little kind of cliques that everybody had. I think everybody had, I don't know. But like, were you into music big time? Were you into films? Were you into any of those kind of things?
I drank a lot of pints.
Good.
That's probably about it. No, I've been tattooing since I was 18.
Yeah.
So it's really that's what I enjoy that. Like
Yeah.
even if I had spare time, I'd probably do something to do with that, like painting or something creative. Like that's all I'm really into. And I do that as my job. So I don't really need spare time outside of that. I do
But
what I like when I go to work. So
do you know what I found doing this? And, I wouldn't have had one-to-one conversations with people like this, obviously, before, because it's arranged, but the conversations go off in different directions, stuff like that. But I found I've picked up certain hobbies, or not really hobbies, I suppose, but different ways of thinking, and that has led me down different paths. Like, and I'm sure you found that, like, even listen to other podcasts, you'll hear about something and you might go out and think, oh, I'll try that, or I like the sound of that, or whatever.
I listen to true crime podcasts. I
Oh
probably
yeah, do
wouldn't.
you?
I probably wouldn't go out and do that. I might
Well,
get in trouble.
thanks. Good to hear. Unless you're the sergeant, or the investigator. But I do find.
I cook a lot actually. I
Oh,
like
do you?
cooking. I'm a really good cook. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I am.
What's the
Confidently, I'm a really good cook.
okay? What's the like? What's the thing that you believe you're best at cooking?
I don't know. Anything. I cook anything.
Fully
Whatever someone
confident.
wants to eat. Oh, with full confidence. I'm class at cooking. Brilliant.
I don't think I've ever seen such confidence on this podcast.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. Any chef, anytime.
so.
Heads ahead.
Where did that come from? The cooking,
I just love cooking. My mom's a great cook,
right?
although I was in my mom's house yesterday and she made dinner for me and she was like, I'm kind of nervous cooking for you because you're the master chef or whatever.
Uh,
And I was like, God, your mom, you're such a good cook. Like, I love whatever you make. And it was stunning. Like, it was so yummy.
yeah.
But yeah, no,
I'm,
just love
fa- I'm,
cooking.
I'm
Love feeding people.
I'm fascinated by this. this level of confidence. I don't think
Yeah.
I've never felt like that about anything, and that's sad to say, isn't it? Really, because we all should have we should all have this confidence in something. But I think with cooking, I think my issue with cooking and being in the kitchen and stuff is like if I find two recipes that I can do, well, that's what I'm going to cook for the whole week, and I'll eat the same thing. I'll eat the same thing every day if I have to. If it's nutritious and I can train and I can go home, I'm not like one to be. Even the wedding yesterday, like the stuff that was served, it was really nice, but it was just food in front of me. It wasn't. So I find it. My dad's really good cook, and I appreciate it. But I prefer to do the dishes than cook. Put it that way.
Oh my God, you can come to my house anytime. If someone would just do the dishes, that's the only
Yeah,
part I
yeah, like everybody has kind of, well, I suppose most people have dishwashers now, so they love that. Like we have a dishwasher as well, but I just find it very soothing. And living on a farm, there's always cows in the field in front of me, and they're just strolling around, and everything's just nice and relaxed. And I just find it, I can just that's one of my hobbies at this stage. I think now that's saying now
like.
that's not a good thing, by the way. Kids, if there's any kids listening to this, that's not a good thing to have a hobby is washing up. But I find it very relaxing, and I think people talk about cooking as that as well, though.
Yeah, no, I do find it very relaxing. I love cooking. And it's kind of one of the only things I still have time to do because obviously it's still paramount to the
Yeah,
raising of the kids, and
yeah,
no one will stop me from doing it. So,
there,
um,
yeah,
yeah, I get to experiment with it a bit, and I'm also kind of interested in nutrition and stuff like that as well. So I
yeah,
try and bring that into my cooking. And then I had different diets and stuff in the past. Like I was vegan for a while and I was vegetarian a long time. So I suppose kind of experimenting with making different proteins and stuff like
yeah.
that. It's like I kind of got very experimental in that kind of period of my life. And now, like, I eat everything now. But I'm still very experimental with my cooking because I kind of get bored eating the same stuff all the time.
There's the difference. But I think it's really great for your kids growing up, to have that level of nutritional thought. I think.
They eat everything. Like I don't really like fish, but I've never said to my kids that I don't like
Yeah,
fish because I don't want them to like get that from me. But they'd have like smoked salmon and like scrambled eggs and stuff. Like, and they're 2 and 3, and I'm like,
that's
I'd be like, like thinking
that's
about eating
that's
salmon, but
sophisticated. Very sophisticated for kids that age to have smoked salmon for their breakfast. But good for them because it is. I actually very much like it. But so important question before we go, Claire. Where can people find you online if they wanted to contact you about getting something?
Instagram or
Mhm.
Facebook. The shop page is Insane Athlone on Instagram and Facebook, or my own Instagram is Claire Griffin Tattoo and same on Facebook. So
Excellent, Claire. You've been a wonderful guest. Thank you so much.
thanks. I'm like
Listen,
a palate cleanser in between all the intellects.
listen. No, I don't agree with this. I think you give them a ink pen and get them to draw on a tattoo. Do you know what I mean? We're all.
Yeah.
I stand up to stand up for every guest that's on the show because I think no, you gotta. It's very important, and I honestly, like I always say, like I know we did 180 of these so far, but the fact that people give me time to come on and have a chat, like it's really rewarding for me. It's getting me out of my very anxious bubble from time to time. So I think it's good that I get it. So I do appreciate it. Claire, if you don't mind sticking around for 1 minute, I'll close it out, get a quick photo, and we will go away and enjoy. You can get out of the car, and then we can go away.
Okay. Great. It's
All
like a
right.
sauna in here.
I'd say it is. Yeah. Right. Let's get through this bit. So, all right. I want to thank John also for doing the tech side of things. I always thank my mum and dad, or my granddad, Jer and Calvin. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all the usual places with the Spotify, Apple Anchor, Google Podcasts. As always, thanks to everyone who tuned in on YouTube or wherever. I just said everywhere. And once again, Claire, thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. All right, everyone. See you next week. Bye.